Welcome to another episode of Relatively Damaged Live. My name is Angela, and this is
Cat.
The live shows are currently streamed on Mondays to Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Remember to follow and subscribe and share with your friends. On the Monday segment of the show, Kat and I discuss topics we find interesting for about 30 minutes. So, today's topic is, what is God? And as you know, we've got a quote, and Kat's going to read it for us.
Thank you. Okay, so this is from Joan Chittister from In Search of Belief. Until I discover the God in which I believe, I will never understand another thing about my own life. If my God is a harsh judge, I will live in unquenchable guilt. If my God is holy nothingness, I will live a life of cosmic loneliness. If my God is taunt and bully, I will live my life impaled on the pin of a grinning giant. If my God is life and hope, I will live my life in fullness overflowing forever.
Such a beautiful quote. And let me just address something quickly before we move on with our discussion. As most of you may be able to tell, my voice is, I'm being delicate with it. So bear with us as we do this, because apparently I've got to learn how to speak properly.
That's funny. Well, I'll get us started. This is a beautiful quote, and it just reminded me of so many struggles that I know I've had with the concept of God, and I know that others have had, going back all the way to childhood. Um, what is God, and the idea that we are searching for that. It just the idea of the God full of life and hope. How many of us were taught that as a child?
That God was full of life and hope?
Yeah.
Mm.
Um,
That's a great question.
Yeah. I look at it like this, is that, there was that aspect of it because I heard the words, but it was more, really, where do we get our concepts of God? A lot of times I think it's in the home.
Well, that and the beliefs of the church that's being followed, I would think.
Right. But even then, if you go to a particular church and they say this one belief, but in your home those beliefs aren't followed.
True.
You have that thing. And I understand why my mom was the way she is, so I'm going to preface this. But I grew up thinking that God was this punishing God, that, I'd stub my toe and my mother would say, well, you must have done something wrong. That's God punishing you. And so that was my concept. Even though I went to catechism class and did all of that from, all through grammar school, that didn't erase the concept of God that I learned in the home, which was that God would punish me if I did something wrong. Because I knew I wasn't a dumb kid. I knew my mother couldn't see everything that I did. Right. But God sure could. So God would punish me if I did something wrong. And that harsh judge, that unquenchable guilt. I think of people uh, who are atheist or agnostic, and they have a hard time believing in that God. So it's the cosmic loneliness. I am
Mm,
by myself. And when it comes to the big questions, the big things that happen, when you get to that point of desperation, they have no one to turn to, but they don't
right.
have the answers within themselves.
Mm.
A cosmic
And
loneliness.
well, and I think that's really interesting what you're saying, this the judgment and the punishing, because in my mind, and I know in the scriptures, God is love. And if God is love, then how would God behave? Or, what would Jesus do, as a lot of people put it? But I think it's really easy to forget to love. For instance, I heard someone tell a story about, I guess in Washington state, if a child is not 18 and they decide that they identify other than what they were born as, their gender, that then they don't have to go back home. The state will support them.
Mm.
And then, so a family decided to leave that is affiliated. There's some. It was a Christian family, and they decided to leave because of that dynamic. They didn't want that to happen in their family. And as they're leaving, they moved to another state, and on their way to this other state, they hit someone who was trying to commit suicide, apparently all night, and was wearing black. And I still not certain where this person was going with the story that was told, which is that story,
Mm.
because I stopped. My first thing was, what would Jesus do? What would God do? If God is love, and this is the way we're created, then who am I to decide that it's wrong? And furthermore, for me, I saw the lady in black that they couldn't see as a reminder that I need to check myself and my judgments. And then, of course, realized I was, of course, making a judgment. And God loves all because it exists.
Mm-hmm. I think of that. God loves all. We don't know why. If I want to believe that God has made everything perfect. Um, there are people who may have deformities. There may be people who are transgender. There may be people who have autism or Down syndrome or something like that. And we in a society tend to think that those people are defective in some way. Um, and we make life difficult for them,
Yeah.
anybody who's different. And I choose to believe that God has those people in the world so that we can learn what it is to love each other. Look at who if we look in the Bible, who did Jesus invite to his table? The outcasts of society.
Yeah.
If we were in today's terms, where transgender wasn't really even a concept that
Right.
they had in biblical times, you know, he'd be inviting the transgender. He'd be inviting the people with Down syndrome, with
Mm-hmm.
epilepsy. A lot of people in times were thought that epilepsy was thought to be a demon inside them,
Right.
when it was, really epilepsy, he would invite those people and care for them and love them. So, why there is such hatred against the other, people of different races, just all of the kinds of things. And people will turn to the Bible and they'll start spouting out verses out of context to give that time. And that's where I think you get that punishing God, or the God, let me go back to the quote. If my God is taunt and bully, I will live my life impaled on the pin of a grinning giant.
Kind of like the ego.
Mm-hmm.
I can... But I mean, if Jesus taught in parables, let's just assume, I mean, because who am I to say which belief is the one that will bring someone else to God, right? And I may speak of Jesus and in the Bible. Other people come to know God through Buddhism or the Tao or other ways. And I just want to say real quick, I want to reiterate that I don't think any of them are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not about it being right, but that also might be like, I don't know where I was going, but now I'm on a different wavelength here. I feel like I shifted, but I think that that's something that's definitely in Christianity, is that it is the right and only way. And I think if we start with that premise of it is the right and only way, then we're already attracting the very egoic, very black and white thinkers. But then Jesus taught in parables.
Mm-hmm.
So in these parables, like the prodigal son, what if I take that and go sit and ponder or pray, asking God to show me where the Father and each son is inside of me? Because I could tell you this much, I see all of them in me.
Mm-hmm.
Is one bigger or more strongly voiced now than the other? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'd have to see. Maybe.
Well, that goes to show you the depth of those parables. And when pondering the meaning of them, a lot of times I think you can come out with different meanings depending on your point of view, where you're coming from in a particular situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, right, because even with the father, with the prodigal son parable, if I'm still in a very egoic mindset, then it's giving me direction on how to behave.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in a very or binary mindset, right? Like egoic or what's the word I'm looking for?
Dualistic.
Thank you. If I'm in a very dualistic, it is helpful to give me a pointer.
Mm-hmm.
And yet when I get to the not to believe, right, then I can see it yet another way.
Mm-hmm.
The non-dual way.
Right. And it just that brings in the whole idea, and it's a very Christian belief of the idea of grace, and works kind of thing. Like you do these works and you will get into heaven. Then there's a whole thing, what is heaven? That could, we could go hours and hours and hours on end about that. But the reality is, and that I perceive, is God is too big for us to put in a box.
Yeah.
To say this particular set of beliefs is how you should view God, and any other beliefs are false.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things. I mean, I've read, various Islamic writers, and there's been truth in there. And people think Islam and Christianity are completely opposite. There is,
As you said
And
that, I got
it is
this.
practice. You
Well, I
can't hear
got the
me?
big. No, I can. Can
I
you hear
can't
me?
hear you,
Huh.
Angela.
Can you hear me now?
No, can't hear you.
Huh.
Huh.
It looks like I'm working on this end.
Well, as we figure out our technical difficulties, I'm assuming you can hear me. Nod your. Oh, Angela went away. I hope I'm still live. I don't know if I am. As we iron out our technical
You're
difficulties.
still live.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. I guess I'm going to have to do all the talking, huh? And you'll just nod yes and no. All right. Well, we have this difficulty, so it's kind of hard not bouncing off of you. The point is there is beauty in all different types of writings. So if you go Protestant Catholic dichotomy, or you go Christian, Islam, there's Buddhism, there's Hinduism, Jainism, all these major religions, and there's a certain truth that can be found in all of them, that point us to, I think, a union with the divine. In the Christian idea, we want to go to heaven because we think that's where we'll find God. And is that really true? Is there a heaven? Or are we supposed to be making this earth into a heaven? And I don't necessarily know the answer. All I know is where I am today and what I feel today. And the one thing I do know is love. Like you said earlier, God is love, and pointing in that direction, and moving us towards that. And so rather than have that loving, rather than having the punishing God, the cosmic nothingness God, or the bully God, I prefer that God of love, and to think of God in that way. And if we are following Jesus as we're commanded to do in the Bible, that's where we're supposed to show that love and try and be love, and go out and do that. And I fail miserably at it, but I try. That's my goal. And
Can you hear me yet?
I was just going, this is very frustrating, not having you, not being able to hear you. Because I feel like I'm having this conversation by myself, and no, it is what it is. Technical difficulties, and without having you to bounce off of, I don't know what more I have to say on this. So I just guess we can close.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't have the closing script, but I do know that Angela does have a show where she interviews, a podcast where she interviews guests on their various topics. I forget exactly what she says, but it's a great podcast. Tune in, like it on Spotify or wherever else you like your podcasts. And did I get everything pretty much? Well, this is Angela, and I'm Kat. And thank you for tuning in today. We apologize for the technical difficulties, and we hope that we will get it fixed for you next week. It was working fine earlier. So anyway, have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye.